Okay, welcome back. And what we would like to do now is to continue with our panel discussion and also wrap up the workshop session. And in order to do so, I would like to ask Sami and János to turn on their camera and their microphones. You already know both from the previous presentations. And in the meantime, I think also Dr. Markus Dietmannsberger joined us. Dr. Dietmannsberger is General Project Manager for Electric Buses at Hamburger Hochbahn AG. Thank you very much that you also join us for today's event. And just for you to let you know, we just ended our workshop part and will now continue with the discussion. And in order to get you on board, so to say, I would like to ask Sami and János and also Stephanie to shortly let us know what the main message was from your workshop session. So what is the most important message you would like to share with the plenary in order to start with the panel discussion, so that also Dr. Markus Dietmannsberger is informed what has been discussed during the workshop session. So is there any volunteer?
I can start.
Sami. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if we had two different things based on the experience, where do you see challenges in regard to large-scale implementation? The rising things were the cooperation between all the stakeholders, and then you can see that things linked to charges and the power grids is one topic, and the availability of information. They're all linked to each other in a way. You need cooperation to get information in order to solve the technical challenges and the interoperability of the chargers and buses. Quite a lot is being done, but I think it seems that it still needs discussion and sharing. That there are dilemmas, but most of them are solved, but maybe they are not being announced wide enough. And then if you look at the second topic, where can we work together learn from each other? You can see that information exchange internationally and nationally is important. And it was raised here quite a lot. And then you have, I would say, a dilemma that PTAs, public transport authorities, and public positions, you can share information between different cities and different countries, but as private operators or private OEMs, manufacturers, we cannot share so much information, as the implementation of e-mobility is our core, one of our core businesses. So of course you don't want to reveal too much. How do you do it? Especially if it involves non-European suppliers. I would say it like that. What was a lot of things, of course, underneath. And maybe you can add, Marieke, if there was something missing.
Thanks, Sami. I think that already wrapped up it very well. I think that's enough for the group now. Thank you very much. And Stephanie, would you like to join what has been discussed in your group?
Yes, I can continue. Thank you. We have tried to wrap up in our group what are the regional needs and the specific needs in each region. And there are some, and we quickly discovered some similarities, but also some major differences. So that led us to the second question, whether there are common challenges that can be dealt with in cooperation. And I think that the main outcome is really that there are common things, but there are also things that are completely different. So you really have to look at what can be discussed with the others and what is very, very individual. Yeah, that would be my wrap up.
Okay, thank you. And then we also had a second group also tackling the same topic. János, maybe you can say a few words?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So regarding regional differences, I think the most important are, are topography and climate. We have a diverse group from northern countries down to the Mediterranean, and I think this is a valid question to understand both of them. And the third challenge was historical cities and inner cities and their special requirements. So when I said the winter is an enemy and the hill is an enemy in the fake news, this is an answer also for that. And looking for the technical specifications, we can have an eye on so-called gradability, which is a climbing capability in hilly cities. We can look for recuperation ratio, which is an absolutely new thing and can go up to 40% of the energy used. We can look for turning radius in historical cities, which could be a problem. And also the load on the city pavement, if you like, in historical cities. So there are specific characteristics which we have to look for in the different situations. Regarding the common challenges, I think for the public transport operator and for the companies, of course, range is very, very important, but equally is important to have enough passenger capacity. In this field, we are lagging beyond the D-bus group or family. So in order to be equal and then gain over, we need to provide enough passengers, which is very difficult, of course. It's an optimization between the battery weight and the passengers' living weight. On recommendations, I think City made a great study of Holland on articulated and also on solo buses, up to 100 or more, with monitor data. That's absolutely important to have those kind of studies for different regions and different climates and different topographies. Because we are a regional cooperation project, this could help a lot to have guidelines and better understanding all regions' specific input, if you like, requirements. So I would recommend to raise this issue that will help thousands of municipalities facing the same problem of understanding of e-mobility or e-buses and then respond to it and preparing the tenders.
Thank you, János. So a lot of issues have been discussed during only the 30 minutes workshop session. That's great. And that's also great now for our panel. And Dr. Dietmannsberger, maybe you can shortly introduce yourself because we know the others from the presentations earlier today. So maybe just say a few words about your person and please also let us know from your perspective, what is the most important step for a successful transition to e-buses?
Yeah, thank you, Marek. I'll do my very best. I hope you can hear me, and I'll do my best to join the topic, although I haven't been a part of it in the early hours. A few words about myself. I'm the general project manager at the Hamburger Hochbahn AG. In Hamburg, we have the commitment that from this year onwards, no diesel buses may be purchased. Thus, the Hochbahn is doing a large project on getting this done a few years ago already. So I'm in charge of the coordination of vehicles, of infrastructure, of communication technology, of sustainability, of all the issues that have to be monitored when you're talking about transition period or finally getting emission-free bus fleets in bigger cities. So far from my side. And the second question, what may be big or one of the biggest issues, I think I can go with Sami a bit. He talked about the interoperability. And to be honest, this is one of the still most important topics that we're facing today. So still, although we're doing a big job on this issue for years now, we still have the problem that it's not possible to make plug and play between buses and infrastructure, no matter which manufacturer you're talking about, and especially when you have requirements regarding high-level communication, not just charging, and then the topic gets even worse. So to sum it up, this would be my number one, as well as the upcoming issues that has to be solved as soon as possible.
Thank you. And just for the audience, as a reminder, you have also the possibility to ask questions using the chat function. So when you have a specific question for one of the panelists, please type it in the chat box. And otherwise, of course, we will also continue with other questions, but we are very keen about your questions as well, and would like to have an interactive discussion to the best possible extent, even if it's a virtual event. So yeah, it was partly tackled already, but Markus, at the moment, the procurement cost of e-buses are higher compared to diesel buses. And what do you think? Are public transport operators able to cover these additional costs, or do you propose any kind of additional financial support mechanisms? And if so, how could it look like?
Well, a good question, a very important question. Buses are too expensive, definitely. Unfortunately, I don't think that the Hochbahn can give a good answer to this topic here, because we are in a very comfortable situation that our owner, which is the city of Hamburg, simply has to pay the bill at the end of the year. And thus, of course, we have the problem of paying a lot for the buses, but in the end, it's public authorities who pay the bill. Nevertheless, we do the best we can to reduce the costs. And at the moment, it's simply using as few buses as possible. So as long as the buses are still so expensive, you can, of course, lower the ramp up. So buying less electric buses, if you're able to. But the second thing you can do, irrespective of the amount of buses you buy, in Germany, you have much possibilities to go for subsidies. So you can get money from the state to support your investments. But I'm quite sure that this is not the case for all the other countries in Europe.
János or Sami, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, please, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see the yellow around me, so I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I would join others to ask Markus about the important question of interoperability. If you could have a little more detailed introduction to this problem, because I think this is also could be a common problem. And financing, of course, is something which unites us regardless of topography and geography, the difficulties of how to finance these projects. I would recommend, of course, total cost of operation or life cycle cost of operation, not ownership, which could be a very important thing, again, to have a proper and unified, harmonized system to count it or to calculate it, to introduce and involve the basic things. This is also a great field of common cooperation, added European value, if you like. In financing, the countries, of course, have different situations, like some Central Eastern European countries, Malta as well, can rely on European contribution, especially environmental regional operation programs and environmental programs. Other countries have government subsidies. Lucky countries can have both, but there is room for innovation. I heard about financial companies who are joining the OEM, the manufacturer, and the PTO, and they are taking over the problems related to battery management and battery purchasing and replacement. So somehow they cooperate together in London. Zenobi is the company. I think it would be important to understand that TCO is decisive, but you have to pay now the double cost. So that's a great dilemma.
Sami, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the one of the thing is the discussion of the procurement cost of e-buses are higher to diesel. It is often also depending how do you look at the contract length, how the world is changing, and what's your view as a operator on the electric vehicles versus diesels, because then again the investment costs are higher, which is correct for sure. That we cannot deny in any means. But then the total cost of operation or total cost of ownership can be more attractive than diesel. But then it's also linked to contract length, that the contract is long enough so that you don't have too many risks in the beginning, which you can solve, and then make the contract profitable for the operator. And one topic is that I would say that the operators has to change their perspective, that if today you buy a diesel bus, you have used to do 12 years amortization for the diesel bus, and you use the same 12 years for electric bus. But now I would say that if you buy a diesel bus, how can you do 12 years amortization on a diesel bus if your contract length is, let's say, 7 years? Often in Nordics it's between 7 and 10 years. Then you should amortize the diesel bus in 7 years, whereas the diesel bus you should the electric bus can be amortized again in 12 years. So then already your yearly costs will have a difference because of that, and then the maintenance costs are lower. Battery replacement is one big topic also. How low the battery prices will go? Will they go lower? Will we have new chemistry coming in? What's the second business for the battery that you take out? There's quite a lot of movable topics, and different operators take them differently into account. And you can see now in the tenders, at least in Finland, electric bus operation offers are cheaper than diesel. If the PTA gives a bit more extra points for the environmental aspects. And related to the financing is quite an interesting topic as well, because some of the banks are reluctant to finance electric buses as the capex goes double. You are a smaller operator, and then suddenly your bank guarantees are not good enough. So we've seen dilemmas where a healthy family-owned medium-sized operator doesn't get a finance to buy an electric bus because the banks are reluctant to give the money. And then if we are innovative, could be one solution. And then you have always the other side of the table. If we split between the bus and the battery bags, it is a bit same as you would separate diesel bus and the engine of the diesel bus, which is also a dilemma. What do you do with the chassis only if you take the diesel out? So there's no easy solution in this, and I think that's the thing is you cannot harmonize this as a general topic Markus has different problems than the operator in Finland or in Sweden.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Okay, Sami, you talked about the lifetime of former diesel buses, about 12 years and so on. So maybe you can get back to rentability or better TCO when you increase the lifetime of an electric bus. Sounds like a good idea, but to be honest, and if you look at the figures, the gap is really huge. So we're not talking about an additional price of 20 to 40% for the electric buses. We're talking about 2 or 3 times the prices for an electric bus. So you would have to use your electric bus 20 or 30 years. And to be honest, I don't think that the design of the whole bus surrounding the electric stuff is designed for lasting 20 to 30 years. So this might not be the solution to close the gap. Furthermore, the most expensive part of the bus still is the battery, I admit. And you won't find, or maybe we do, but at the moment you don't have the battery technology that you can use for 10 or at least close to 10 years. So at the moment, the market tells us you can use the battery, let's say 5 to 8 years. If you're very, very nice to the battery, maybe a bit more, but this is not the solution for 20 to 30 years lifetime. So closing the gap of 2 to 3 times the price to a diesel bus by arguing you just have to use it longer and the batteries as well is not the solution that will help us closing this huge gap.
If I just add on that, I would put it like this way, that you can close the gap with small streams coming from the amortization, and I disagree that the vehicle price is triple. It's maximum twice, but then again, it's a question what do you add in your procurement, and how's the life different maybe in when public is buying the vehicles compared to a private ones. But the gap is getting smaller. It's not anymore twice the price of a diesel bus. It's less, and I totally agree. You can't drive a bus for 20 years or 30 years. That's for sure. But if you make the gap already 50% smaller by increasing the amortization time, and then you have lower maintenance costs, and yes, you have the battery pack that you need to change, but then again, can you drive with a Euro 6 diesel engine, modern technology, also 1.2 million kilometers? No, you need to overhaul that as well. So I would say you need to take quite a lot of things into account when you do the comparison, that you don't take the worst examples from the electric bus and take the best examples from the diesels. But yet again, it quietly depends also how is your business running. Is it running on a 7-year contracts only, or do you operate the whole city and you don't need to worry about the contract lengths? Well, it has a quite big difference also.
Thank you. And there's also some discussions ongoing in the chat, and also János mentioned it. Markus, you mentioned problems in interoperability, and maybe you can provide some more details here, because there was also a question in the chat from a participant. If it's possible to learn.
János, you want to go first?
Sorry?
I think this was a question for János and for me. So, János, do you want to go first, or?
Sorry, I missed something.
So maybe Markus, just
Okay.
Interoperability is also raised by Eric, I presume, in a chat.
Just got kicked out. So can you hear me again?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Just lost the connection. Okay, a few words about interoperability. Okay, what can I do? So the basic concept in Hamburg we use is or the main target for us is buy several suppliers of buses, buy several suppliers of infrastructure, and make it happen that every bus can talk to every infrastructure. This is crucial because we buy up to 1,500 buses the next years, and being strict to a single supplier is not an option. Way too high risk for investment and so on. So the only option for us is to make interoperability happen. And the most promising concept that we actually think and procure and pursue is using the ISO standard 15118, which is the basic communication protocol for charging infrastructure and electric vehicles. And this can solve all the problems. So mainly for fleet operators, we have the additional issue of being forced to precondition your vehicles. So preconditioning heating, especially in the winter, in order to not lose a lot of range for preconditioning en route. This can be solved by the standard 15118. So you have to find additional solutions on this, but nevertheless, the topic for the base standard is complex enough. And at the moment, we're facing the fact that the standard, the 15118, is too young, let's say, and it's too wobbly. So all the manufacturers can interpret the details, the bits and bytes that have to be programmed or coded like this or like that. And in the end, you always have the problem that the interpretation of the code or the interpretation of the protocol for both sides of the cable is not the same, and you always have those issues. This comes from simple timing issues. So the timing for sending a message from one participant to the other participant is simply longer than you expected, and then you have timeout issues, and then simple charging sessions stop simply due to the fact that communication doesn't work. And so it's widespread issue, widespread problems here. And yeah, so that's from my side.
Thank you. And then there's another question from the audience to all of you. If you see a general trend towards overnight depot charging, do you think that's a general trend?
Is that from you as well?
The question is to everybody. So whoever feels to comment on it.
If I can comment, I will just, Markus, one question related to the interoperability is to distinguish that is it linked to all sorts of charging or only opportunity charging? I guess it's only the opportunity charging is the main dilemma, not cable charging.
No, we're not using opportunity charging widespread. We're using depot charging CCS combo 2.
Okay.
It's plug charging, 150 kilowatt.
But related to the question that do we see more and more bigger batteries replacing the opportunity charging? Yes, it is mainly from the Nordic perspective. Everybody wants to have bigger battery pack and not to have opportunity charging during the line operations. They want to charge at night at the depot.
Yeah. I would contribute as well. The two classes, the two groups, as I mentioned at the beginning, as historical kind of competition. Group 1 relied on the progress in battery technology. So the important thing is not to pay a fee on having more battery capacity. And development goes into that both the volume and the weight of the batteries related to their output is lower and lower. So you gain more energy from the same space and the same weight. So that is an optimistic output or way out from this dilemma. And another point to Markus is whether specialized companies can overcome the problem of interoperability. So you deal with information technology or intelligent transport solution offered from certain extent from from the manufacturers. But as an operator, you may also think of outsourcing this problem of complex management to specialized companies like Vericity, like Twice or EPS. Or is that a solution for a larger fleet?
At the moment, it's not for us. So in the end, you have to talk to the manufacturers who program their ECUs, so the communication units in the vehicle, to find the solution. Vericity providing data collection and telemetry data and so on via another communication channel is not solved, from my perspective, is not solving the issue of interoperability via cable, so plug. So at the moment, I don't see this as an option. Yeah. Maybe I can add something to the discussion, opportunity versus depot charging. Of course, on the wish list of my colleagues in the bus operation department, battery capacity can only be replaced by more battery capacity, and range is only can only be replaced by more range. Of course, they all want more range, and obviously everybody's hoping for getting better batteries and so on and so on. But in the end, maybe you have different solutions for different problems. So when you look at this, at the 12-meter bus, we are already in target, let's say. So the ranges that can be provided at the 12-meter buses are sufficient for most of the routes. But if you look at articulated buses or even 24-meter buses, it might be even more challenging. So the larger the bus, the more likely it is to use options like upcharge or even hydrogen. Yeah.
Sorry, may I contribute as well with some fresh information? And probably it's encouraging. Just received some information from yesterday when -12 degrees was the lowest temperature in Page. And we have a 10-member BYD K9 fleet in operation. And our drivers are still in the learning process. But the best throughout the few months was over 100 kilometers per day per one charge and retaining 15 or 20% in the battery. And yesterday, the average was not above the 1.2 kilowatt hour per kilometer, which is probably also very encouraging news. And if you consider that auxiliary systems like heating, venting, air conditioning is improving its efficiency, this is a great opportunity also to cut lower the otherwise wasted energy of the battery and turn it into range. So 300 kilometers is excellent in a daily operation. And in cold weather, probably also solo buses up to 1.2 as an average is also quite encouraging for everyone.
So you already mentioned the range of e-buses, and some public transport operators see the limited range of e-buses compared to diesel buses as a fundamental problem. And in order to maintain the same quality, that would mean that one have to operate more e-buses at the same time. What is your viewpoint on this? Do you agree? Or what could be the solution? You already mentioned bigger batteries, but also more opportunities for charging or full cell range extenders. What is your opinion on this? Sami, would you like to start?
I think you said it already. It's in a way, would be nice if we would live in an ideal world to change the diesel vehicle into electric vehicle in one night, and life is beautiful. But that's, I think it's a naive to think like that. Things are changing. It requires a bit different kind of planning, and you cannot just do it completely the same way as you did it before. But to run the vehicles 24/7, we have different solutions, such as either range extender or opportunity charging. But it means that the operation will look differently, and the bus drivers have to come to the bus stop to charge the bus while they are loading people in and out. It is different, but quite a lot to the problems there is solutions if there is enough talk and will.
Again, if I may, I just received fresh information that the minimum use throughout the few months, it was 0.74 kilowatt hour per kilometer, and the maximum range per day was 117. I have a very disruptive answer to this. I think that e-buses can fulfill the same operational requirements with a lower number of the fleet, but much better exploitation of each of the members of the fleet. And I refer to the information technology and the ICT opportunities. Buses must run as much as possible every day. And if you see that, let's say 150 would be an average every day, that's usually quite enough per bus in the diesel field. But if we use them continuously with the night rest of 4 hours or so, then we can outperform the present situation when the efficiency of using the fleet is not that important. So if you use all your buses every day to the maximum, then you get better the benefits of operation and the savings. But also I think that in calculations we found out that the e-buses can outperform per daily range the present average. Because it's not efficient, nobody cares for diesel buses kind of percentage of use, or it's a great dilemma, and it will be very elegant to have proof for not having more e-buses for the same requirements, but having less e-buses, less expenditure, still having the same standard. Amen. Amen.
Okay. I think, Sami, you mentioned that there are challenges, but there are also solutions. And during the workshop session, there was also the topic raised of cooperation between stakeholders. So what do you think? How can the different players better learn from each other? And where do you see a need for more cooperation?
Yeah, I think it's the all stakeholders need to increase the cooperation and information sharing in order to optimize the system. Like János said as well, with electric buses you can drive 24/7 because you don't need to go back to the depot and fill diesel with them if you have the opportunity charging. So e-mobility can enable something different than diesel buses, but there are these technical challenges like the interoperability, how the vehicle fits into the charger, and how the system is adapted to maybe e-mobility, or small adjustments can make the system even more optimized. And in order to do that, I think that one of the challenges is that we have so different kind of tenders in different countries. Already inside Nordic countries, we have a system level tenders where the operator plans the operations, and we have tenders here where the PTA plans everything and the operator has basically nothing to do except put the drivers on the vehicles and drive. And that I see as the challenge, that if only one stakeholder plans everything without discussing with the other stakeholders, you can't find the optimal solution. And there I say again, if you make a tender, however you make it, make sure that you discuss with all stakeholders, including the city, because often you see that you have a great idea, but somebody forgot to take the talk to the power grid company and ask for the permit for the new cables, or city architects to build the charging stations, or these kind of things. So I highlight again, cooperation and discussion with all stakeholders before you go live is crucial for success.
Thank you. I think it's really a pity, but we are actually running out of time already. I think there are a lot more topics we could discuss and exchange about. But before we will close this panel discussion, I have one last question for each of you three, and I would like to ask Markus to start answering the question. So for the future, what would be a headline you would love to read in the newspaper when it comes to eBussed development in your region, or maybe in Europe? What would be a newsletter headline you would love to read?
I would love to read the headline, finally electric buses are cheaper than diesel buses.
Okay, thanks. Sounds simple. What about János? What would be a headline you would love to read for your region?
Disruption again. More frequent, safer, greener, more silent public transport for less. And then the town could be replaced by anywhere.
Thank you. And Sami, what about you, your headline?
I think I can see already in the headlines quite a lot of things that I like to see, which is that the e-mobility is coming in all parts of Europe all the time. I would say that is all. I'm already reading the news that I like to see. Maybe one more thing that I would like to see is that we innovate even further inside the vehicles, that we would see completely different kind of buses in some cities where they have tried to take all the seats out and it's just a standing vehicle with the coffee tables and all that, or something completely different.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much to all of you, in particular to our panelists and to our speakers. I think overall the event offered a lot of information, and we received some inspirations and also the possibility to exchange with each other during the workshop and also during the panel discussion. And yeah, I think there would definitely still much more to discuss about, but yeah, we are running out of time, and we will now come to an end of this interregional learning event. And before I will hand over to our host, to our organizer, I would like to ask each of you to use again the chat box and let us know what's your first takeaway message from today's event. So there will be further events organized by the project and also in other formats, and it would be great to know what your first takeaway is from the event, in order to further improve the events and also define topics for the next events. And now I think that's all for me. I think yeah, I think there's definitely a need to continue the exchange, and cooperation is an issue that has become clear today. And it's great that the eBussed project will continue, and there will be further possibilities to come together and learn from each other and exchange experiences. And for now, I would like to hand over to Stephanie, who would also say a few words at the end of the event.